Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into a challenge that, let's be honest, pretty much all of us face, figuring out our professional path. We're going to be guided by Rolf Fink's book, Finding Vocation and Talents, which kicks things off with a very powerful and very familiar question.
You know the one. It's the question everyone has asked you since you were a kid. So, what do you want to be when you grow up? It sounds so simple, right? But for most of us, that question doesn't get any easier as we get older. Actually, it just gets way more complicated, and maybe a little bit terrifying.
And that's because, according to the book, the modern career world isn't some nice, clear, paved road. Nope, it's more like a dense, overgrown, and super confusing jungle. There are countless paths, a ton of dead ends, and it is incredibly easy to feel completely and utterly lost. So let's really get into this idea. What exactly makes this jungle of our time so tricky to get through when we're all just trying to find our calling? The book really just cuts straight to it. It basically says, hey, if you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by this whole career search thing, you are not alone. This feeling that it's too hard or maybe even impossible, well, that's a really common experience for a lot of us. But why? Why is it so hard? The book argues it's not just you, it's not a personal failing. There are some real, fundamental hurdles built right into the systems we use to match people with jobs. Let's break some of those down. We often get stuck in one of two crazy opposite traps. On one hand, you have the agony of choice, this feeling that you could do anything, which is so paralyzing you end up doing nothing. And then on the other hand, there's this despair, this void of options, where it feels like there's absolutely nothing out there for you. It's like bouncing between those two extremes, and it's almost impossible to find a clear direction. And then you've got the practical stuff we've all run into. You know what I'm talking about. Job descriptions that read like they're looking for a superhero who can also juggle fire. Aptitude tests that are so weird and random they don't seem to have anything to do with who you actually are. Or interviews that feel less like a conversation and more like a high-pressure performance. All these things just make that jungle even thicker and more confusing. Now, to really explain this, the book gives us another fantastic metaphor. It says that the whole hiring process has kind of become less about finding the right fit and more like a staged play, a theater production. So in this play, the employers are the directors. They set the stage. And we, as the candidates, we're the actors. We're there to audition for a part. The whole thing, from the resume you write to the interview you give, is a performance. And if your performance is good enough, you get cast in the role. But that makes you wonder, does the best actor always get the job that's the best fit for them? Probably not. And here's where the book drops a really powerful line. It suggests that even with all the tests and structured processes, the real director of this whole play is often Fortuna, the goddess of luck. Pure chance plays a way bigger role than anyone really wants to admit. And that's the fundamental problem with this whole theater setup. All these fancy tools, these assessments and behavioral interviews, they create this illusion that we know what we're doing, that it's all a science. But by focusing so much on the performance, they often miss the most important thing of all, the actual person. Now look, this feeling that the system is broken, it isn't new. For a long, long time, people have been searching for a better way, a way to look past the performance and actually see someone's true potential. The author even shares this really personal story that I think we can all relate to. When he was 18, he took some aptitude preference questionnaire that was supposed to give him clarity, but instead, it just left him even more confused than when he started. Sound familiar? So, just how flawed is this system really? Well, the book brings up a stat from the legendary management guru Peter Drucker, and the number he landed on was 1/3. So, what does that mean? It's pretty staggering. Drucker estimated that a full 1/3 of all high-level executive hires are just plain wrong, total mishires. Another third are just okay, kind of weak. That leaves only 1/3 that are actually good fits. It just goes to show you how deeply flawed this theater of hiring really is. Okay, so if the outside world is a confusing jungle and the systems are a flawed theater, where on earth do we turn? This is where the book suggests a really powerful shift. Instead of looking out there for answers, we need to start looking inside. This really brings us to the biggest challenge of all, right? How do we get past the performance, past the theater, and actually create a genuine, authentic fit between a person and their work? And for everyone involved, how can we learn to see past the polished resumes and the rehearsed interview answers, to recognize the deep, real potential that's inside a person? The answer, the book argues, isn't some new test or a better system. It's about trusting something we all already have. It's this idea of an invisible compass, an internal guide that's always pulling us toward what gives us meaning and fulfillment. And this, right here, is the biggest takeaway. We have to stop looking for a perfect map to get us through the jungle. Those maps just aren't reliable. The real work is learning how to tune out all that outside noise and start listening to our own invisible compass to really get what our unique talents are, what we're passionate about, and what our purpose is. And that's really where we'll leave it today. After wandering through the jungle and peeking behind the curtain of the hiring theater, the final question isn't what the world wants you to be. It's much simpler and much more important. It's this: what is your invisible compass telling you?